Well, the African Development Bank is a regional development bank. Everybody's familiar with the World Bank, but there are a set of regional development banks. We focus exclusively on Africa. We finance both through a concessional and a non-concessional window, which means we get money during a replenishment from some of our stakeholders. But we also have our non-concessional financing, which we raise, capital on the capital markets, and we're able to invest in certain countries. So we have a wide range of financing. Typically, we finance, anywhere from, $4 to $5 billion of investments per year, if you look at the total package. So, although we're a major regional development bank, a lot of what we do is leverage financing from other sources as well to bring in financing to be able to finance some of the projects that we do. So we're significant in the sense that you'll find us probably in almost every high-profile infrastructure project on the continent, for example.
What give us a sense of the level of interest in green investments from governments in Africa. Has that grown in the past few years? Are more people contacting you and saying, rather than we would like to build a coal power station or we want to build an oil refinery, are they saying, help us fund a wind farm, help us fund solar projects? Can you really see a change in that regard?
Well, we still see both. Our bank, we just developed our 10-year strategy, which covers the period from 2012 to 2023, if I've got the dates right. There are really two focus points in this green growth strategy. One is green growth, or what we say is a gradual transition to green growth, because green growth is new to the African continent. And the other is inclusive growth, meaning that growth needs to benefit everyone. So we still finance a lot of the conventional types of projects. I mean, we will not tell a country that they can't consider using their coal resources or their oil resources. And as everybody knows, Africa has a significant abundance of these types of resources. But what we do when countries do come to us, we want them to look at the options. We're trying to promote greening or cleaning of our portfolio, which means that those types of investments where we can come in, especially on renewable energy where it makes sense, we will try to encourage countries to consider that as an option. Sometimes these renewable technologies are untested. Oftentimes they come in with fairly high tariffs. And what we do is we try to bring in some of our highly concessional financing to be able to make these types of technologies more attractive to countries. We have a number of instruments that we do that through. We have a Sustainable Energy Fund for Africa that helps to do a lot of the early stage upstream financing to make projects bankable so that we can consider them within our own pipeline. We just approved a Africa Renewable Energy Fund last week that's setting up a private equity fund that'll be run by a private equity fund manager that will look at a scale of projects that are really too small for our bank to consider. But we realize that there is a need to be able to help finance some of those. And they'll be doing this again using some of the highly concessional financing that we'll be providing to make it more attractive for private investors to come in. And we're quite pleased that we also have attracted the attention of other agencies and other institutions to support us on that. We got some funding from the Global Environment Facility to come in and put some money from a private public partnership platform that we're managing with Jeff Funds. And we have some significant funds coming in from the Sustainable Energy Fund for Africa, which is supported by the Danish government. And very soon we'll have the American government coming in as well, providing some funding over a period of years to help with this fund to build it up. So we're quite encouraged. There are lots of investments out there, but not all of these investments are bankable. So we're working very closely with countries to make sure that they are attractive projects and they're going to give the returns that everybody expects and deserves.
That's interesting. The lack of finance seems to in many ways have framed this conference, but you're saying that there are moves from countries like the USA and other developed countries to help fund this Africa Renewable Energy Project and other schemes. Can you give us a sense of any figures, how big this is going to be?
Well, CEFA is not all that big. It's a fairly small financing when you're looking at project preparation. We might provide up to, say, $1 million per project to do environmental impact assessments or feasibility studies. That's in the first window. The Africa Renewable Energy Fund, first closing, we expect it'll probably be about 100 million. So it's not huge, but it will finance some of these smaller projects. It could be even as small as, say, $5 million or even less. And essentially, if they're successful, one of the things we'd like to do is see them close fairly soon on this fund. If they're successful and can actually get on the ground and demonstrate results, we think this will lead to additional interest. The intended size of this fund is supposed to be about 150 to 200 million, but there's no reason that it can't be more. I mean, obviously the needs are very great, but at some point you need to say, well, I have enough funding now to get on the ground and start doing some work. And again, if it's successful, we expect other financing to follow.
Carrying on with the kind of theme about climate finance, I mean, are you getting governments knocking on your door and saying, we want to do this project, we don't have any money, or are you finding that actually there are flows of finance getting into the African continent and helping develop green initiatives? Give us a sense of the overall state, if you can, of financial flows in Africa related to the climate.
Wow, that's a difficult question. Well, I could say that one of the things that we're doing, we also manage the climate investment funds. We're an implementing agency along with other agencies. Of course, the trustee is the World Bank. But we have significant financial flows. And what we've helped do is, on our side, there were two efforts to track climate financing. Basically, the work on mitigation finance was led by the Inter-American Development Bank, and this is to track MDB financing. And we led the work on adaptation financing. So I think one of the things we're able to do right now is a better job of actually looking at the climate financing that we're actually channeling in the bank. And I think if you look at the combination, if my figures are right, for 2012, which is the most recent figures, I think we were able to say that we're mobilizing about $2.2 billion through our bank of climate financing, both in terms of mitigation and adaptation. Of course, this is very small. Again, we're a regional bank, but if you add it all up, it's significant. I think worldwide, some of the figures. I was actually, I think, at the COP in South Africa a few years ago. I think they reported that they thought there was about $100 billion, or 96 billion, if you want a more precise figure, that is being channeled into climate finance worldwide. And this is both, looking at the sovereign windows, including MDBs, but surprisingly, a lot of that climate finance is private sector. The recent figures on that, and again, this has been revised, and this is at a climate finance meeting that I recently attended in Copenhagen. That's been revised down to about a third of what was reported, several years ago at COP, at the Durban COP. Down at around in the neighborhood of between 30 and 40 billion. But so, does that mean there's less, climate finance actually flowing, or does that mean we just are able to do a better job of measuring that financing and what it is? And maybe some of the things that we thought were climate finance before are not necessarily considered climate finance today. But a significant amount of that financing we feel needs to flow into Africa, because the needs obviously are great. Again, it's pointed out time and time again that Africa has contributed very little to the issue of carbon emissions. But yet, a lot of our countries are suffering, just like we see in other parts of the world, like, for example, the Philippines. A lot of them are already suffering, and we could very clearly demonstrate they're suffering from the effects of climate change. So we need the investments to flow, but we also need to work very closely with our countries to make sure that they're ready to make good use of that funding when it does arise.